Well, if you know anything about my luck with astronomical events, you'll already know that it was cloudy as all shit the other night when the big solar storm made auroras visible as far south as Florida. I did see some lovely photos from just west, north, and south of me. East of me is mostly just ocean, but I'm sure if fish could take fucking selfies, they'd be taunting me too with all the cool shit that they saw. Now, for listeners who don't know U.S. geography or are listening in archives, I should point out that I'm talking about a crazy solar storm that left the northern lights visible way further south than normal, like further south than I can ever remember them being visible. And they're saying that they're going to be even more visible tonight. That is tonight as the night that we're recording this, not the night after it comes out. But I don't know that I believe them either way because they're forecasting for clear skies where I live. But of course, when you see something like that, or in my case, hear about other people seeing something like that, you can't help but reflect on how fucking weird that must have seemed to our ancient ancestors. But like all natural phenomenon fucked with our ancestors, right? They had no more explanation for earthquakes, thunderstorms, and spiders than they had for auroras. And I'm sure in places where those were regularly visible, prehistoric people just incorporated them into their myths and their religions and shit and satiated themselves with the same just-so stories that placated everybody before we had science. But what about when shit like this happened, right? What about when a phenomenon slipped from its normal geographical bounds and suddenly a hurricane blows inland to the mountains, or a long dormant volcano wakes up, or the aurora slips south of the Mason-Dixon line? What did ancient people do then? What terrible portent would a person assume if their demon-haunted worldview suddenly had to incorporate a curtain of mile-high green and red light suddenly dividing the heavens? You know, some people will act like we lost something by moving on from that state of terrified ignorance, as if the only byproduct of these beautiful omens would be wonder and curiosity. As if nobody in those prehistoric days would have looked up at this unprecedented aerial display and gone, yeah, we should probably set an old lady on fire about this, huh? Of course, there are still plenty of people out there that live in this state of prehistoric ignorance even today. People who reject or ignore the scientific explanation and still choose to live in that same demon-haunted world. And those people still look up at an aurora and ask, what does it mean? And if you try to say it means that charged particles from the sun are colliding with the gases in Earth's atmosphere, suddenly you're an asshole. Because they ask what it really means, though, right? Now, this kind of shit, it comes from one of three places. The first is arrogance. Some people genuinely need to make a fucking aurora about them. Right? Either it's an omen about their life in particular, or it's a riddle that they need to solve. But either way, they have a personal connection to the light emissions from those charged particles, damn it. And how dare you cheapen that with prosaic answers that are at once simple and profound and would, if you take a fucking second to think about it, be way more poetically inspiring than whatever ghostly veil your imagination could have come up with. The second place, of course, is intellectual laziness. If there's a knowable answer that you don't understand, you have to either pretend that there isn't or admit that you're not all that fucking curious. And who wants to admit to themselves that they don't really care about the mysteries of the universe if there's going to be math? The third place, though, is the most dangerous. It's the kind of forced ignorance that builds walls between itself and knowledge so that none of those damnable facts can chip away at their God. It's the kind of regimented stupidity that needs at least a couple of tangible, visible mysteries to hide their God inside of. And those people can range from pitiable to violent, right? Because fucking wars are fought to enforce enough ignorance to make room for gods. But here's the thing. If you think that knowledge cheapens your experience of a thing, it can only be because you're viewing it through a bargain basement worldview. The real answer is always so much better than God did it. And if you're willing to fully comprehend both the explanation and its implication, your life only grows richer for them. You don't need to scrounge at the bottom of some theological bin for your wonder. Charged particles are a wonder. The sun is a wonder. Earth's gases are a wonder. Light and color are two endlessly fascinating wonders if you give a shit to understand them. The Northern Lights aren't a single wonder. They're an amalgamation of wonders, each of which could fill a lifetime with marvels if you dug deep enough into it and let yourself admit their truth wherever you found it.